Now, before I start, let me just tell you that intro is not AI generated. I promise I will show you receipts if I have to. I pay good money to somebody to actually do that, as I appreciate art, and that's why I'm even doing this review in the first place. Not that AI garbage. Um, Anyways, it's been a year since I've done a video. You're probably wondering where I've been. Just been working on my graduate thesis, working full time on a very intensive workday project, and another move. So I apologize for being gone for so long, but hopefully I'll be back in action, full speed ahead, making a lot more content for you guys, not just for art, but for the college itself. So I'm very excited about the path that we're going on. But without further ado, I had to get another APO injection immediately, and the doctor gave me exactly what I needed because for the last couple days, APO has been putting on a show called 12 Angry Jurors. This is their usual APO show that they do right before the Spring Musicale at the Columbia Theater, and 12 Angry Jurors was their selection this year. Again, this was put on by Alpha Psi Omega. I usually just call it APO. And this was written by Reginald Rose, the production, and then we have directed by Carter Cortez, who's actually the president of APO. So very fitting, very very fitting. So just a rundown real quick of what this is really about. As the title says, it's about 12 angry jurors. Basically, everything takes place in a single jury room where 12 different jurors are discussing whether a young man killed his father or not. You're dealing with a lot of different personalities, different layers of logic. You're going through ups and downs. You're dealing with one-sided votes, then divided votes evenly, and then maybe swinging to another side again. There's a lot going on. So you're just gonna have to see it tomorrow if you want to know what it's all about. But that's basically the premise of it without spoiling anything. First off, I want to take care of our crew here because the crew works very hard. Nobody usually sees all the work that they do. And trust me, even though that all this takes place in one scene, pretty much, in a 70-minute scene, there's a lot going on with the crew. So I want to give a shout out again to our director, Carter Cortez. Then we have our stage manager, Taylor Ramos. There was a lot of movement in this show. There was a lot of people going from one side of the room to another. There was a lot of different things happening. So a lot of stage management happening. You had props. You had all that stuff going on. Lighting manager, Xavier Johnson. Yes, of course, lighting was very important in this. There wasn't too much happening again because we're dealing with one scene, but where Xavier shined was really in the beginning and the end of the production. And those were huge moments that added a lot to the production. So, phenomenal job. We have DJ, our sound designer. He's going to play another part in all of this later on, but the sound was incredible for what it needed to be. We didn't have mics in this except for one person at the very beginning, but I'm going to get to that. Everybody else did great with projection, and I'll explain all of that in a little bit. Graphic designer, Ashton Persick, our very own Ashton Persick, recently graduated in graphic design, I believe, but there was a lot of good advertisement put out for this show that included the graphics. You have the actual thing, the pamphlet, and then there was actually a really cool animation that she did as well. I didn't even know she did animation. Maybe that's a new avenue for her. But everything graphic-wise was phenomenal for this show. Production manager, Madison Smith. Production was great. Everything was where it needed to be. Everything went smoothly. And the thing was, I went to a rehearsal one. Like I went to the preview showing before the actual showings. So this is where things usually go wrong, and nothing really went wrong. So I was very impressed. Photography, we have Kenneth Woods. Kenneth Woods is actually also in the show, but there had to be photography done for advertisements and Lions Roar and that sort of stuff. So he got put in there for that. Video editor, same thing. in this scenario. There was no actual video in the show itself, but again, for ads and that sort of thing, we had, video editing along with the photography, and that was done by Reagan Hoover, who I believe is vice president of APO. So all that was great. I got all the information I needed from the Instagram page. So all of that was very, very well done. Our scenic consultant, Ben Norman, everything is exactly how it needed to be. Ben Norman is an absolute pro at all of this, so no shock that everything was where it needed to be scene-wise. Assistant stage managers, we have a Kaylee Murphy and a Ella Townsend. I'm not very theatrical. I don't really know how all of that works with assistant stage managers, but considering that that Taylor Ramos looked really good on her job, must mean that the assistants really did a good job too, because a lot of them, lift up the actual stage manager. So I'll be excited in the future to take a look at Kaylee Murphy and Ella Townsend in other productions, whether they're doing crew or cast, to see how they do. But again, the crew did a fantastic job. Even though this was more simple than a lot of other productions, it's still very hard when there's a lot of movement, a lot of objects being thrown around, a lot of stuff happening. It's hard to keep up with all of that. So considering everything, I think they did an absolutely wonderful job. Anyways, I want to get into the actual cast of the show itself. So nobody really had a name per se. Everybody had a juror number, or they had just a blanket generic name for their role. So you have a juror 1, which is the forewoman of the jury. That was Kennedy Porter. I don't know if I've seen Kennedy Porter in anything before, but it does denote APO membership, so maybe I have. But anyways, the forewoman of the jury basically, rounds everybody up together. She's basically sort of the captain. She takes the votes. She kind of directs the jury as far as all the official stuff goes. Not necessarily the discussions, but anytime there was a vote or an official thing happening, she kind of had to take charge. As far as Kennedy's part in all of this, I think she did wonderful. When she needed to be assertive, she was very assertive. She took over the conversation. She took over the room whenever it was her time to go. There was, blanket interactions between her and the guard, Logan Watts, whenever props were needed. And that was a very smooth transition. You didn't really have to hear that conversation, but you could understand exactly what she was doing in the nonverbal sense. So I think Kennedy did an absolutely wonderful job, and played a very clean part as the forewoman of the jury. Juror number 2, and forgive me, I have the actual Instagram up next to me so I can see pictures of the people, because I don't remember exactly who was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not like people had names in these roles, so I'm kind of going off of the actual actor / actress, and some of these people are new to me, so I kind of have to get a visual of who it is. We have a Jalea Angeles, or Jalea Angeles. Forgive my pronunciation if I'm wrong. I'll try and get it right in the future. She was juror number 2. So there was, a little bit of uncertainty in the beginning where this juror kind of didn't know what she was doing, and then she became a lot more assertive, a lot more powerful, a lot more definitive later on. And I think July really shined through in that. Now the thing was I was facing towards the way that she was facing, so I didn't really see as many facial expressions when she was sitting down, but there were times where she was on different sides of the room because of what was happening in the story, and I thought she did wonderful with that sort of thing. I think she's got a very bright future in acting if that's what she wants to pursue. I'd like to see her in more works. I think this was a very great start as far as me being a first-time watcher. but I liked the character development through in and throughout. Oh gosh, okay, Juror 3. We have a Sophia Spears. Yeah, I don't think I'll ever forget this character. There was two, I would say, stars in the whole thing. I like to pick a couple of MVPs of who carried the show, or not necessarily carried the show, but who shined the brightest. And here's the thing. It's not due to the actual talent of the actors slash actresses. It's about the writing and who fills those roles really well. Obviously, Sophia Spears fit this role for a very good reason, and it's her assertive nature, her strong nature, aggressive nature. Juror 3 is definitely somebody to watch whenever you go and see this. She definitely takes charge of a lot of things going on in the jury. She has a lot of power. You can hear every single syllable come, and it was just. I could barely talk about it because it was that powerful. It blows you away. You actually become scared as an audience member of this character. And that's a wonderful thing to have in your production, especially when you're dealing with people that are supposed to be angry and frustrated and mad. And Sophia was just like a reign of terror over everything. So I think Sophia Spears was absolutely perfect for this role. She did awesome. I really don't have many notes for that. Next, we have Juror 4. We have Louis Mangiaras. I don't know how to say your last name. I apologize. I'll work on this more and more as I keep going. But I'm kind of shooting from the hip on this review. Louis, I thought Louis was great. I think Louis had, I want to say, a little bit of an accent. I don't usually listen to Louis because we don't really know each other outside of the account. But he had a very deep and sophisticated voice, and whenever he talked, you just wanted to listen to his logic. And maybe his logic wasn't always sound, but because it sounded so good through the accent, through the voice, you felt like it was the most intelligent thing to come out. I could listen to the voice all day, but I thought he was wonderful in his role, and he was one of the leading characters in the whole thing. He was very important to the story, very important to what was going on in the room. And you had people that were on the guilty side, people that were not guilty side. Lewis had a very good transition, a very good arc from where he was to where he ended up. I can't tell you where that was, but it's a good arc. Next. Oh gosh, okay. I gotta go to the next post. Okay, we have a Lions United classic here. Chloe Williams as a juror 5. And at first I couldn't recognize her because, usually she has her hair, all out. But this time I think it was like in a ponytail and everything. But I didn't recognize her at first. And then I'm like, wait, she kind of sounds familiar. And it took a little while because the character was a little shy at first. There was a little bit of a stutter. There was a little nervousness. And that was part of Juror 5's aura. She wasn't the most confident person in the world. She wasn't a Sophia Spears ready to murder somebody in the room. She had a little more reservation to her, a little more hold back. But, as time went on, the strength starts coming out, she starts becoming more definitive. She starts becoming more assertive, more powerful. And those are really good arcs. It's nice to have a Sophia Spears, a juror number 3, that just goes in all out rage the whole time. But you have to have some character development in the story too. And Chloe really, really shined through that in Juror 5. Juror 5 had one of the biggest developments in the story. Jury 6, Phoenix Webb. So Phoenix was actually probably one of the most consistent characters throughout the entire story. She was pretty strong in the beginning as far as her decision making, as far as her choices, as far as what her intention was as a juror. Towards the end, there was a little bit of a transition in logic and that sort of thing, but the delivery was still very similar. There wasn't, from soft to strong. There was, it was just straight arrow to straight arrow to straight arrow to straight arrow. Phoenix was very, very consistent. And that's very hard to do as an actress, especially when you got people throwing chairs, especially when you got people going ape in the room, going nuts. I thought Phoenix played a very neutral character, which again was very important in the story, especially when you got all these people, going nuts. It was probably the most consistent character in the whole show, by far. And so I was very, very, very happy with Phoenix. And I think she's relatively new. I don't know if I've seen Phoenix in anything. All right, we have another Lions United classic. We have a Juliet Chuff. Forgive me if I say that last name wrong. But Juliet, she does a lot of music around Southeastern. She does release a little bit of her own music. And I think she runs like a singing lesson business in Hammond. So good for her. She's doing big things. She played juror number 7. She had to change a little bit of character too. I wasn't used to this because actually the last time I saw her was in Putnam County Spelling Bee, where she played kind of like a shy schoolgirl and kind of like the smart one in the room and that sort of thing. This time she was a little more, I don't know, like, I don't want to say pretentious, but she played sort of a, like, I don't know, almost like a me, or like I don't care about anybody else except myself sort of deal. The whole thing with Kenneth Woods, opening and shutting the window. You could see when she was like bored or aggravated. I think she was like laying down on the table in the jury room. Like there was some mannerisms there. She played a lot of her role through the mannerisms and her nonverbal looks, I guess I would say. But when she spoke with conviction. She spoke very strongly. She was very stubborn, very arrogant in the beginning, and then you saw sort of a transition, but it was a very quick transition towards the end of the story. But again, the mannerisms really played through, and it worked very well for her character. Was really excited to see that actually. Next, gosh, okay, this is another, I guess, fan favorite. I told you 2 people probably stuck out the most, and that was Sophia Spears' character. Being angry, being mad at everybody, going ballistic, and then you had juror number 8, Hadassah Patterson. Again, I apologize for the mispronunciations of names. So please correct me if I'm wrong on that. But Patterson played another very consistent character. I feel like Phoenix was very consistent as far as her mannerisms go, as far as her speech. You never heard her be like more angry or more reserved. Phoenix was just very through and through. But as far as Patterson goes, the character development, she pretty much sort of played the hero in this whole thing. So you saw who was the protagonist and you saw who was fighting the most, and she had to go on this big journey about sticking to her guns and convincing all the jury with her logic, with her reason, with conviction about whether the person committed the crime or not. And she went through so many scenarios. There were times where she was really funny, when she was demonstrating certain scenarios that were happening. There were times where she stuck up to freaking Sophia, and you could feel the room just like condense. You felt the pressure. You felt like the whole place was going to explode if there was more pressure happening. Just full on conviction in her role, and her ability to just look at somebody with a straight face and say, this is where I stand, this is who I am, this is what I believe in. Her being able to do that was incredible. I thought the way she explained logic was incredible. And that comes with practicing your lines, practicing your role, And I would say she probably spoke more than anybody else in this whole story. So, I mean, major, major, major props to Patterson. She's definitely one of the MVPs of this show. People definitely had their eyes on her. She did phenomenal, and I'm very happy with the job that she did. And again, all this was in a rehearsal. It's crazy, man. And then we have a G. Allen Cannon. So I'm not too familiar with G. Allen Cannon, but it seems like he's a professor. He's an older gentleman. He's definitely not a student. Definitely not, in his 20s, maybe his 30s or 40s. I'll give him that. Maybe early 30s, late 30s, but he definitely stuck out like a sore thumb out of all the kids there. But I'm very glad that he did this show. He was one of the more reserved characters. He was, he still had logic, and you could still see how he would view things, and he actually connected well with people that were not in the story, like not on the stage, but the way he could connect with certain situations that were happening beyond the stage. So he would be talking about things that happened in the courtroom, and he would connect with witnesses and other people, and he could understand why maybe they did certain things. And so he had to play kind of a softer role, a more empathetic, a sympathetic role, as far as, empathizing or sympathizing with other people. So he wasn't necessarily one of the loud ones screaming at anybody. He was, he was more of the empath. He was more of the caring one. So calling it 12 Angry Jurors, I don't know if he was really angry. He was, he was feeling bad for people. He was, he had a big heart, a very big heart in this. And, he was a character that I could really connect with and feel for, I thought he was just an absolute pleasure. And I just wanted to give that character a hug after the whole show, But, I think I saw that G. Allen Cannon never really did a show before this. I think he was involved in a lot of crew stuff, maybe. I'm not sure. Don't hold me to that. But, I thought he was wonderful. He did an absolutely great job, and I'm very happy, very, very, very happy with his performance. Next, we have another veteran that came back. We have Landon Scholl. Hopefully, I said that right. Landon did shows in the past. I think one show I saw that he did was Radium Girls. Where they were talking about the little factory incidents with the poisonous materials with radium, and how the radiation and the materials were poisoning people and workers, And he did a great job in that, but he also did a wonderful job in this. Now, he wasn't always the most aggressive person like Sophia was, but he was definitely deuces or third as far as, anger goes. When I say stuff was being flipped around the set, I'm talking about Landon. Landon literally flipped a chair. He flipped a literal chair over. Didn't hit anybody, of course, but I had to sit back for a moment and be like, did I see that right? Did he really do that? I was about to leave the room. I was a little scared of Landon there. You scared me, bud. But He was also one of the more arrogant characters, one of the more stubborn, set in their ways, ready to stand their ground, and then had a very, very quick transition at the very end. But he was one of the guys that was, very firm, very frustrated with everybody else because they just weren't listening to him. He had to just keep telling them what he thought, and he couldn't understand why people just couldn't understand what he was thinking and what his logic was. But there was a lot of screaming from him, a lot of, again, chair flipping, a lot of just anger from him, and he played a very good job in the anger role. It was very different than what I saw with him in the past. So this was a new look, and it was a great look, and I really enjoyed Landon's performance, and that shouldn't be much of a surprise. Kenneth, let me make sure I got this right. Yeah, Kenneth, Juror 11. Kenneth is a Lions United fan favorite through Lions Roar through APO Productions. And he's not even in APO, but he's participated in APO Productions. He's done that sort of deal. But he's great. He's wonderful in all senses. The person, the photographer, the reporter, all of that stuff. So major props to Kenneth as a person all around. Love the guy. Glad he's doing well. But as far as Juror 11 goes, I was really taken back by the voice. He did another accent. As far as being funny, I think Kenneth was definitely the funniest in the show. And Kenneth has a really good talent for that. He played Ghost Boy in a different murder show, and he was the funniest dude by far in that show. Everybody was funny in that show, but Kenneth playing Ghost Boy was a very funny performance. But he used his accent to his to his advantage. And he had a little bit of like a oomph to him, like a little bit of a sass to him, where, you know, if people gave him attitude or people said certain things, he'd be like, huh, you really said that? And he would have nice little clapbacks at people to make them feel insensitive or to make them feel like they're wrong. And he played logic all the way throughout the whole thing. He tried to listen to everybody. He was more attentive. He was definitely one of the more open characters in the show. But I thought he had very nice remarks. He had very good clapbacks. He was kind of a witty, funny character, and I really appreciate that out of Kenneth as always. He always plays a very good, funny character. And in a show where everybody's angry, it's nice to have the one guy that kind of just like diffuses everything. Not really in the room, but with the audience. Juror 12, our last juror, is Beth Barber, who she played a very strong character as well. I don't know if I've seen Beth in anything else. I want to say I have, but I'm not 100% positive, so I'm not going to say yes. But Beth was wonderful in this production as well. She kind of played a very, like, I don't know if I'd say stuck up. I don't know if it was stuck up, sort of like some of the other people, but she was also a very firm character. She liked to play logic out as well. She liked to, you know, make strong arguments, strong defenses as to why somebody did or did not do something. I can't tell you that, but she definitely had one of the more stronger, stubborn personalities in the production rather than some of the other people. But she was also, you know, kind of on the sidelines while Sophia was going after who was it? Chloe. That sort of thing. She was, I guess, sort of a diffuser, but sort of not. She just wanted the whole thing to be done. The character wanted the whole thing to be done. So I think that was well done, and it kind of the thing is I think that character kind of helped amp up other characters. You know, when you put her next to other people, she kind of helped reinforce, you know, their personalities and their stuff. And you need somebody that's really good at doing that, amplifying other people. And then towards the end, she really started to shine. She really started to pop off. So I really enjoyed, I enjoyed all 12 of these characters. They were all wonderful. Now, a couple other people that you didn't really see as much in this. You have the guard, Logan Watts, another Lions United favorite. Logan, he was the guard that would usually make sure everybody's okay in the room. He would bring props that our forewoman Kennedy Porter needs. So he would pop in a couple times, and he was always a very reserved character. Didn't really say much, but he did his part. He if something was needed, he went and got it. He brought it in, and that was that. So good job to you, Logan. Then you have the judge, James Winter. So before the show started, Well, right when it started, the room was dark, but you could hear the judge in another room because right now we're looking at the juror room, so we're not in the courtroom, but you can hear the judge from the juror room announce stuff. And it was a very strong, powerful voice, and a lot of that was with the help of the sound production by DJ, who actually played as the clerk. So when the clerk sent everybody off to the juror room to go discuss whether the person did it or not and come up with a verdict, that's when you heard DJ's voice. And I say this over and over again, but DJ's voice sounds like the voice of God. Like when he talks, it's so like definitive and powerful, and gosh, I could just listen to DJ's voice all day. He's got a really good, powerful voice. So that was the cast, and then everything else is just biographies on all of our actors and actresses. I was pleasantly surprised by this production. Now, when I saw Radium Girls and I saw the Insomniacs little bit, there was a lot of set changes. There was a lot of different stuff happening. And this is all considering the fact that all this was in the Columbia Theater side theater. So we weren't dealing with a full stage. We were dealing with like a side room that had chairs on both sides. So there wasn't any set changes. And those are really, really, really hard to pull off. People want to see different things. The attention span of people like us now in this generation is very small. So looking at one set, looking at one scene for 70 minutes seems like such a tall order, but not for this APO, not for this group of kids. They did a phenomenal job. They were able to pull it together. They remembered all their lines. I never saw anybody forget a line. The set was always what it needed to be. You had the table, you had the chairs. When people threw chairs, it landed where it needed to land. You didn't have anything crazy happen. And usually in these rehearsal productions, usually the director, Carter in this particular manner, would say stop or freeze, or they would give out a command just in case maybe something happened that wasn't supposed to happen, or provide instructions so that when the real production happens on the Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, they're a little more established, because this is their first time doing it in front of a live audience. They didn't have to stop it once. It was almost a perfect run. I'm never going to say it was a perfect run because that's literally impossible. You go to Broadway, there's no such thing as a perfect run. But in my eyes, as somebody that doesn't go to theater, doesn't watch theater as much, or doesn't understand theater terms, or go through the whole process of preparing a production, in my eyes, as just a regular Joe Schmo, it was perfect. It was, ran exactly the way it needed to run, and the audience reacted the way they were supposed to react. So that means the jokes landed. That means the writing was good. That means the stage management and stage production were good. The audio worked well. People were able to project. You could hear what everybody was saying. That was another thing. You have 12 jurors. I would think that there would at least be one person you could not hear or understand. This was truly 12 Angry Jurors. You could hear everybody in that room. You could hear everything that's going on. Except when the forewoman was talking to the guard. But that's about it. And you weren't even supposed to hear any of that. That was nonverbal. So in that case, everything worked exactly the way it needed to. And they put on a very successful preview of the show. Now, I can't speak for the Thursday, Friday runs. They got one tomorrow. Maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. But if it went anything like it did on Wednesday's preview, I think they're in for a very good show, and that's why I think you guys should definitely go see it. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed being back, and I'm going to be going to the musical in a couple of weeks. Horrors from Outer Space or something like that. I got to go look at it again. But anyways, I'm going to be producing a lot more content now. I'll be talking about a lot more things at Southeastern. I apologize for even being gone this long, but had to just take care of some things. But I'm back now. But anyways, I wanted to talk about this show. I thought it was a wonderful production, and I wanted to give these guys their props because they worked very hard on this, And local theater is not something that should ever die out, especially in this digital age where you have all this AI BS and digitization and don't even get me started on that. I know I'm talking to freaking YouTube, but it is what it is. I can make the best of it. But anyways, had a fun show, and I can't wait to talk to you guys about some more stuff coming up. Peace.